Welcome back, viewers. As part of our India Revival mission, where we've been putting the spotlight on various sectors as we talk about restarting businesses and reviving the economy in a post-lockdown era, tonight we put the spotlight on the film and television, the entertainment industry and the media industry completely shut down. Right now, there are absolutely no shoots happening. You're looking at reruns on your television screens. The only functional part of actually right now is the news industry, because we have to get you the news. But outside of that, things are very, very grim right now. And we don't know which way we are headed. Consumption patterns are also changing. People are consuming their content very differently. And in a post-pandemic era, the way we live our lives, the way we interact, the amount that we go out, the amount that we spend at home, all of that is expected to change. So how does the industry deal with that? Well, who better to ask that question than a very well-known entrepreneur who's dabbled in a series of businesses when it comes to this industry. He's currently the chairman and co-founder of UpGrad, Ronnie Screwvala. Thank you so much for speaking with us this evening. Ronnie, let's begin with what we are staring at right now. The fact that there is absolutely no work on the entertainment side, no shoots, no production taking place, hundreds of people currently waiting for just, the lockdown to lift so that work can begin again. What's your own sense, the kind of damage or the impact that the industry will see because of that?
Well, I think you're seeing damage across all sectors and industries today, whether we like it or not. I think when something is absolutely shut down for the tenure which has been shut down, you're going to see that cascading effect. I think the critical element is, and for everyone who's an entrepreneur, everyone who's running their own businesses, leaders in large corporations, the big real challenge is really how to preempt the next 6 months and 9 months. I think the people who actually stand out there and preempt that are going to be able to get out of this. The critical element today is how do you not start your business all the way from scratch? And I think most people are dealing with the fact that how do I start and climb up the ladder from zero? So that is the preservation that I think people need to do that. Take the edtech sector, which I'm in right now. And I think the element there, I think that's one of the few industries that's actually going forward because it's fully online in terms of delivery. You asked the question separately on media and entertainment. Yeah, I think the challenge is storytelling is evergreen. Storytelling will remain. I think people more than ever in times like this need inspiration, need to look at things from a different point of view. Now, whether habits will change as to how they view and consume that pattern is something that I think in 1 and 2 months, you're not going to see major trends. There's fair amount of apprehension today as to when we'll be able to get out of this. So I think it's going to be complicated across.
Yes, and while in the last few years we have seen a significant amount of corporatization of this industry, there is still a large part that functions in a very unorganized way, and hundreds of livelihoods are dependent on that. Now, while for other industries, Ronnie, I see how they are making representations to the government, seeking some amount of help from the government. How do you do it for an entertainment and a television industry?
I think if you ask me, there's a fair amount. It's a little difficult. I think today, for many industries and many sectors, my personal view, and it might be a contrarian view, is not to say what is the country can do for me, but what I can do for the country. So I'm a firm believer that today everyone needs to pitch in and not really look for the kind of sops in some of the sectors. That doesn't mean that we don't need the breaks that we need to get things going. I think today the appropriate businesses are looking for clarity of how they're going to be able to unwind from this and start their own businesses in their own way. And I think the time has come for us to take those hard calls. I know for the last 2 months, we've always been talking about lives versus livelihood. But I think for India, it is a genuine problem. We do not have an economy that can support a $2 trillion injection into the economy in any case. So I think we'll have to deal with this very differently. Government will be able to step in at some parts. You can't get into a situation where you can only look for tax breaks if you're not making any income. So if you're not making an income, you're not making a profit, what's the point of right now looking at tax breaks? You've got industries and factories that will have to ensure their own discipline to start up in their own way and manage the enterprise. In some way, we'll have to deal with that. Otherwise, I think the impact will be far-reaching and even deeper.
Okay, so let's talk about how an entrepreneur should see this opportunity and plan ahead, because the consumer pattern is changing, behaviors are changing, people are now consuming a lot of the content, interacting, doing their work, even studying online. Now, what opportunities do you see there?
I would, for anyone who wants to start a business in 2020, I would first say that if you're thinking and seeing opportunities in some certain sectors, be careful, plan, but don't necessarily jump into it. And the reason I say that is because I think the core of any business is what is your total addressable market. And I think that's going to change. So what you think is the scope today, will that be the scope tomorrow? And will people and the consumer willing to pay at that price is going to be the big question mark. So I think 2020 is one where you can think big. Even for people who are surviving, I think they need to think beyond their means and think past the 1 year, because we are going to come out of this in one form or the other. And the people who can think beyond the 3 months and the 6 months and the pain of the 3 and the 6 months are going to come out of it better, stronger, and harder. For people starting up, this is a great year to develop. This is a great year to consolidate. This is a great year to think. But this is not the great year in which to jump the fence, which you've anyway been sitting on for the last 1 year to figure out whether you want to start something new.
Mm-hmm. No, I get the point that you're making. So, okay, for example, let's talk about, the music artists and the stand-up comics who otherwise would be on tour right now and, making some money off the shows. It's not happening. Now, some of them have started capitalizing this online, and they've started doing these shows online where you pay for it online and you use different apps. Do you think that going forward, we'll perhaps see a lot more of this indoors entertainment versus outdoors?
No, I think today most of what you're seeing there is one of relief. It's one of everyone participating. Monetizing that is not going to be easy. We are one of the lowest ARPU countries in the world. We've remained that way, whether it's in consumption of content, telecom, or wherever else. This is not going to change that easily, and it's only going to be under more pressure.
Yeah.
So I think the critical element there is going to be, how do you monetize? And if you can't monetize, then it'll remain a passion and a hobby.
All right, Ronnie Screwvala, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Pleasure to always have a conversation with you. I appreciate you taking the time out. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's get you various more views and insights into how this industry, the world of television and TV serials and drama, the world of films and, all the masala movies that we see, online content, how will all of this change? And how will it emerge out of this pandemic and this lockdown? Let's say good evening to Radikaa Sarathkumar, actor, also the chairman of Radaan Mediaworks. And I've also got Mr. Abhishek Rege, CEO of Endemol Shine. Abhishek, let's begin with you. And I want to take off from the point, from what I asked Ronnie Screwvala just before this, is the consumption going to change? Are we going to see people, like, at least for the next year or couple of years, seeking various avenues to consume entertainment indoors rather than outdoors?
Hi, Tanvi. I think I think at the basic level, if we start off from the fundamental, I don't think that there's been a change in the demand. I saw some of the numbers you were showing while Ronnie was speaking, and there was a 60% dip in demand. But then you saw such a huge spike in
We seem to have lost that line with Abhishek Rege. We're just going to patch. All right, Abhishek, we lost the line with you. You want to repeat what you were just saying?
Sorry. Yeah. So I was saying that I think there's only been a realignment of the content consumption, and the demand at a very fundamental level continues. You saw a 60% dip on one side, but a 650% increase on Doordarshan. So I think that stays. The question is, how do we bring in fresh programming? From an indoor-outdoor perspective that you've asked, I think clearly once slowly things open up, that could be anywhere between 6 months to 9 months, there'll be a fresh and big demand for outdoor, because that's what's been deprived of presently.
Yes, but for example, the kind of shows that we were able to shoot and put out there, we will perhaps not be able to do for some time. I know Karnataka has already allowed some amount of, film shoots to begin and TV shoots to begin. But you will always have these hiccups, at least for 2020 and maybe even later, until we find a solution to coronavirus. Will we see innovation then? Will we see different kind of TV shows being produced that can be done more in-house, more reality formats? Is the industry already thinking on those lines, Abhishek?
Um, so I think there will be some sort of a repurposing there. You will see a lot of interactive shows, etc., where people are connecting online using various apps. Having said that, I think you will get back to the regular shows again. The question is, how do we do it at the right cost, in the right environment? How do you manage it so that it becomes a planned process where you're creating a slow, steady, sure, sustainable environment where even if you have these hiccups, how do you kind of quickly turn that around? And I think that is something that producers across the board are working on. There's a lot of standard operating procedures that we're building, and we're trying to kind of stay true to that.
Okay, let me also bring in Radika Sarathkumar of Radaan Mediaworks. Radika, what's your view on this point of how will the industry adapt to the current situation? Some amount of work has to begin. It can't be on that large scale with those large number of people. So then what can we expect?
I think television would bounce back faster than cinema because television per se we can contain, we can put in procedures in place, we can try and minimize people and have a conducive place to work in. In cinema, it'll be a challenge because it's not that easy in cinema, the operating structure. So we just have to now, everything changed overnight. And everyone is breaking their head to see how they can take this across, take this forward. A lot of things are being discussed. But till all these numbers start leveling out, we cannot think further. I think entertainment industry, according even the way the government looks at or anybody, we are the last industry anybody is going to give a helping hand to. So we basically have to survive on our own. And we'll have to see how this goes.
So the other question that I was actually asking Ronnie also earlier, Radhika, is that many of the other industries which are a lot more organized and corporatized in their manner are already seeking help from the government, in stimulus package, relief package, some kind of tax break so they can, ensure that they take care of their employees. But for the entertainment industry, that's going to be a challenge. Now, how do we ensure that people's livelihoods don't get badly impacted?
The only way we can ensure these people's livelihood don't get impacted is we have to start work, because that's the way this industry operates. But if you're looking at the larger picture of the corporate companies, the tax breaks and all that, we always, we'll always like to say, yes, the government has to come and support us. But I don't think the government is going to look at the entertainment industry very closely, which they've never done. We are the highest taxpayers. But if you ask benefits, I think we are the last people in line to get any benefits. So it is a very, very dicey situation. But we need a lot of strong minds and strong voices to put these things, because it's like starting afresh. So now we need to set certain norms and standards within our working environment, even financially and everything. It is a huge curve we are taking. So we need to work together to bring this fairly workable for everyone.
Okay. Abhishek, if I can come back to you, your company has produced the biggest of the shows, the most popular ones, which again require large numbers, a grand scale of a big boss, a large number of people involved in a Khatron Ke Khiladi kind of a scenario. How do you intend to now produce some interesting content in the next couple of years?
So I think this has been an ongoing process for us, where we've kind of invested in technology as well before. A large part of our time in this lockdown has gone into thinking up of operating procedures where we can actually maintain social distancing. How do we kind of avoid too much crowding on sets, etc.? How do we get the people in case of like a Big Brother kind of a setup? How do we get people in and keep them safe in a sterile environment throughout the period of the show? We are also shooting large shows in the scripted side for OTT players. So I think all across, the idea is how do we possibly create an environment where either the unit is in isolation for a period that we shoot and in a self-sustainable kind of an environment, and at the same time, how do we kind of manage processes with automation and technology that will reduce people required at a given point in time. So we could have shifts on how things work. We will have other ways of how do we handle those people so that at a given time, you don't have too many people on set.
Okay, and so I'm going to just put it out simply. As a viewer and a consumer of all things entertaining, when do I get to see fresh content if the restrictions continue the way they are for another couple of months?
Personal opinion is about, from the time the lockdown opens, because we can't have any date, you can't hazard a guess. It's actually anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks post the lockdown opening that you would actually look at it.
Okay, all right. And Radhika, again, as a consumer and as a viewer, how long before we actually can see films getting released again? Because it's going to be a huge task, and it's not as if coronavirus is going to go away in 2 months. That virus is staying for a while now, and we will have to adapt to it and then work around it and then produce content. So how long before we actually see fresh releases in the cinemas?
Because that is going to be the scenario, because it's not, after the lockdown, it's not that corona has disappeared. It is going to be there. We have to adapt a way of living with it and going forward. But like I said, entertainment industry, especially cinema, is going to be the last thing to be opened up, because theaters, air-conditioned places, all these are not viable for what the virus and the situation now. So films and the theaters are going to take a pretty long time. Like I said, television will bounce, but I'm not too sure about cinema.
Okay, it's been a pleasure, Radhika, Sarathkumar and Abhishek Rege, to have you, with us on this conversation. I wish we could have spoken in better times, but once the times do improve, let's get together again and have another conversation of where we are headed and how people are consuming content and how you all are producing that content for us. But thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Well, let's move on and let's focus on what's happening across the world, viewers, and how we are headed and how close are we to actually get a vaccine? How close are we to actually finding a solution to coronavirus? Every single country and the researchers and the scientists and governments in every single country are putting all their might behind finding that one solution. Now, just to get ourselves updated of where we stand and perhaps how long is it going to take, we've got two experts who are joining us right now to give us a world view and of course also include on what India is doing. But let's look at the set of news that has actually come in the last couple of days. For example, there was a claim that came from Israel, and Israel said that they have had a breakthrough as far as vaccine is concerned, that the Israel Institute of Biological Research has developed an antibody to COVID-19. But again, these are yet to be tested on humans, so that would mean that we are still some time away before actually having a vaccine. Italy also made an interesting announcement, and Italy came out and said they have had a breakthrough in vaccine, that they are in collaboration with Applied DNA Sciences and they're working on a vaccine for it, that the company is carrying out animal studies at this point of time. And then the next step will be taken. Of course, the reports also say that the vaccine produced antibodies that had a neutralizing effect on the virus. So that's why they are confident that they may be gaining some traction and reaching closer to the point of having a vaccine. United States is carrying out trials. US-based Moderna is conducting clinical trials right now. In fact, the first phase trial has already started the process and is aiming at enrolling at about 45 volunteers who will then undergo this entire testing process. In Germany, they say they have developed an antidote. So a vaccine is being prepared to enter the human trial stage. So the Germans seem to be a step ahead right now, saying we have the antidote. Now we're going to start testing it on humans. And volunteers in a high-risk group have already been shortlisted to be part of this trial now. Of course, the one very famous has been the Oxford trials, and scientists at Oxford University are literally working day and night to develop a vaccine, and some say that you could see the first million doses coming out as early as late this year. It's based on a technology that involves genetic modification to trigger really an immune response. In fact, these scientists are also working with some people back home here in India and an institute in India as well. So there's quite a bit of international collaboration happening on that front. There are more, and we'll keep taking you through the details, but I'm actually going to leave it to the experts to really tell us which way we are headed. Dr. Ramanan Lakshminarayan, my apologies, affiliate professor, global health at the University of Washington, and he's a director and senior fellow at the Center for Disease Dynamics, Economics and Policy. He's joining us this evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Lakshminarayan, for joining us. And Dr. Naresh Trehan, Chairman and MD of Medanta, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for speaking with us. Dr. Lakshminarayan, let's begin with you. Various news and coming from various parts of the world, different countries making different claims. In layman terms, if I had to ask you, still how far away are we from getting a vaccine?
So this is a difficult question because each of these vaccine trajectories, there are about 120 vaccine projects going on right now around the world in various countries, including in India. There's development going on in India as well, which you had not mentioned. But there are a couple of companies working on vaccines in India as well. Now, all of these either follow a pathway of inactivating the coronavirus and basically trying to use that as a vaccine. That has its challenges, it has its advantages as well. A second form is to use a different virus like an adenovirus and basically, insert this coronavirus sequence. Now, that's some of the vaccines that you spoke about just now. The disadvantage there is that the body may already be immune to the adenovirus and therefore may not, take on that particular adenovirus. So, and there's another mRNA platform. All of these have pros and cons. So we have to understand there is no magic bullet here. They all have pros and cons. And in the normal scheme of things, vaccines like this would take between 6 and 10 years to develop. So I think we should be guardedly optimistic. If something happens, it is likely that by the end of this year, we may have a candidate. But that is still only part of the way, because getting to the hundreds of millions of doses of vaccines that we need for the entire world, probably billions of doses, it will take at least another year. You can only develop, produce about 10 million or 15 million in the very first year. And then after that comes the challenge of delivering the vaccine. Now, keep in mind in India, we have difficulty delivering vaccines even for 26 million children born every year. The vaccine coverage, overall full immunization coverage is about 75, 78%. So to get vaccination coverage to over 500, 600 million people that's a third challenge. So we have 3 steps here, and we're still very early on step 1. So we should be optimistic, but be guarded in our optimism.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Dr. Trehan, the fact of the matter is that there are about 120 different efforts on, perhaps more. We'll be reaching that stage anytime now. But even if we had to expedite this process and fast track it, there are still some basic steps that have to be completed before we can actually say, oh, all right, this seems to work, let's start producing it now, isn't it?
The basic thing is that who's the lead candidate yet, we don't know. There are two. The Oxford vaccine is supposed to be actually along the not far along, early along the way. And then there is that Moderna that is being collaborated with Johnson and Johnson in Boston. That seems to be moving along. There are some others from Germany and all that. So it's very the whole sort of landscape is full of hopefuls. Now, how those hopefuls will emerge, nobody really knows right now. But the good thing is that they are in phase 1 trials already. So if the safety is established, we hope that the next 2 steps will come in short order after that. But it takes time to understand that the vaccine is really effective. That is one part of it. The other part of it, that safety is established over many people, because we know vaccines are notorious in some ways. So I think that like Dr. Lakshmi Narayan was saying, the words I use is cautious optimism. That yes, we need to go that route. There are technologies to compress the development and testing, but at the same time, it'll take at least a year or so to be able to say it can be for mass use. As far as ability to manufacture, India does have 2-3 good companies who can manufacture large volumes. So whether India can be a beneficiary of those people once the vaccine is licensed out, yes, that's a possibility that India can not only produce for itself and may eventually be an exporter of vaccine, which India already is. So that's the scenario from the Indian side. But don't hold your breath. Basically, that's what we are saying.
All right. So in the meantime, then, are there other options that we can look at? How have we found out more about the virus, Dr. Lakshmi Narayan, to at least know how to reduce the infection, how to contain, or is it still just limited to saying, okay, boost your immunity and maintain your distance?
Every day we are learning more about the virus. Literally every day, there are papers that we get to review, and we're learning from America now, before we're learning from Europe, and before that from China. We know what sort of patient factors, put people at risk. We know a lot more about that now. We know about biomarkers that you can measure in someone who's asymptomatic to tell if they will develop into severe COVID disease. We didn't have that, even a month or so ago. We have more ideas on, potentially on ventilation, on when the mortality actually happens. There's sort of, 2 phases of mortality. So there's a lot more that we know right now, and all of this will translate into better outcomes, I think, in the very near future, because people are paying attention to what's happening in other countries. Now, as far as treatments go, I have to say that we really don't have any good treatment. There is a lot of hype about hydrochloroquine. I think there's now a number of trials showing that this is not really, a place to bet on. The other drugs like remdesivir and so forth have had, very, very marginal impacts and not necessarily worth all of that attention that we thought it could have. So at this point, we're not on, we don't have much by way of therapy. The plasma therapy, which is an old form, is not a scalable method. It can be used for some patients for a limited amount of time, but we just can't scale it for any country, let alone the size of India. So we're still running a little bit behind on this part, but I think there are things which come before treatment which prevented a patient from getting to the severe case, on which we know a lot more about.
In fact, on that note, I just wanted to go back and ask this question about plasma therapy, because in India we've started using it in over 20 centers now, Dr. Trehan. But there are some, pros and cons. There is still a side of the plasma therapy impact that we are unaware of, or that we should be cautious about.
So one thing that's happened in India is that, one, we are late in the cycle for disease, in the sense the rest of the world got the disease before we did. So if you have a lot of devastation in Europe, in America, China, of course, before everybody. So from that point of view, we have a lot of things that we have learned along the way, including the fact now that the latest study that came out of Italy about the mechanism in which death takes place, that it is more micro thrombosis, intravascular thrombosis, which may be the culprit for all this happening. So
Yes.
when you look at the frontiers on which we can attack this disease, is one, we talked about the drugs that are available and are being tested, and they are not living up to their promise as expected. But remdesivir still has some relevance today, and maybe over a period of time we'll be able to find out more as longer and larger studies take place. The second thing is, when you talk about plasma therapy,
Okay, all right.
we should stop looking at it as a silver
Yes.
bullet. It has its limitations, and used at the right time may be useful.
Okay, use at the right time, very useful, but we can't see it as a simple bullet, and it definitely cannot be used at a large mass scale. Dr. Trian, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and it was a pleasure, Dr. Lakshmi Narayan, to have you as well. Thank you, both of you, for taking the time out and speaking to us. Welcome back, viewers. It's been over 36 hours since that horrifying gas leak at LG Polymers in Visakhapatnam that led to 12 deaths and hundreds of people being evacuated, some of them getting hospitalized. So far, we've only got an FIR against this company, and we aren't really getting too many answers as to what went wrong and who was responsible. The National Green Tribunal had a hearing today in regards to this company, and they have now been asked to pay up 50 crore rupees. But why has nobody been arrested? Why has nobody been asked any questions? That's what I want to understand. So let's say good evening to Mr. Amaranth. He is the YSRCP MLA joining us from Visakhapatnam. He's responsible for that area, and he's with us right now. Mr. Amaranth, people will need some answers. It's been 36 hours. We've not even arrested people who are responsible for that plant. Okay, I don't think we have Mr. Amaranth Gudivada Amaranth, YSRCP MLA from Visakhapatnam. Very clear questions we wanted to ask him as to what is really happening. Why is it that we've not seen any kind of accountability at all? Mr. Amaranth, we've not seen anybody be arrested so far. Why is that? It's been 36 hours since that gas leak.
See, hi, good evening, everybody. The incident took place yesterday morning at around 3:30, and the case was registered on the company yesterday afternoon, maybe yesterday afternoon. See, we are not anyway, our government or our chief minister already intimated the government officials and the police department. See, we don't claim that LG is a big international company, so it's a big multinational company, so it doesn't do mistakes at all. So it doesn't have any issue with the company and all. See, even though it's a multinational company, the total fault is with the company itself. The company as the mistake is the one who has done the mistake, and after the lockdown during the maintenance period, this accident has occurred. So why the accident has occurred? Due to the mistake of the staff working there, or it's due to the company's failure, or the management who have to take precautionary issues, because this is almost a 60-year-old company which has been stalled due to lockdown for almost 40 to 44 days. So once the central government has given permission for the industries
to maintenance of the plant is their responsibility, Mr. Amaranth. Just because there is a lockdown doesn't mean that the plant officials are not supposed to maintain it. They are supposed to maintain it, and it is their responsibility if something goes wrong. Now, if you will not question them, if you will not ask them this question, grill them and arrest them, then where is the accountability for 12 lives that have been lost?
See, 100%, the accountability is 100%. It's the LG Polymers company who owns the company. See, the LG staff who is the chief operating officer from Korea, the managing director is from Korea, and the general manager operations is from our state itself. See, we have taken the high power committee as well as the district officials. They're all under our this thing, and we have been investigating since morning. See, we have to first of all get the issue under control. Still, there is some leaks in the tanker, which has almost 1700 kl of styrene, which has to be neutralized. The neutralization agent, the chemical has come from Gujarat yesterday night, and the activity has been started of neutralizing the chemical from yesterday night, and is still being going on. And the officials who are the expert committee have been telling that it will take almost 24 to 48 hours to neutralize the whole chemical. See, first of all, there are almost 15,000 people residing, and they have shelter homes. So first and foremost priority of the government is to take care of the people who have been suffering from this issue. There are almost 500 to 600 people who are staying who are taking the medicine is being done to the people in the hospital, and almost 15,000 people are in the shelter homes. We have to take care of them. See, we don't leave anybody. Let it be LG, let it be a company from Korea, let
you
it be
can take care of the people now, but these people were Mr. Amarnath. Yes, I understand what you're saying, and it is your job to take care of these people now in shelter homes and however you want to keep it. But here is my question. The first SOS call went to the police at around 3:30, as per your own government information that has been given to us. I had the NDRF person sitting on our show yesterday who said they got the first call at 5:30. We wasted 2 full hours, Mr. Amarnath, 2 full hours in calling the NDRF.
See,
so I am asking you the question again, where is the accountability?
See, our government officials got the call. Our local police have got the call at around 3:40 a.m. in the morning. See, our deputy commissioner of police have gone to the spot at around 4 o'clock, within 15 to 20 minutes from the first call from so-called people who have called to the district authorities. See, we don't estimate the issue as soon as we go to the place, what's happening or what happened because early in the morning there was no wind flow at all, and after the sunrise, as per the officials statement, after the sunrise, started flowing, and it has gone to almost there has been a big spread. So once we monitor the issue, and when the officials, even it's a chemical reaction which the police doesn't know. Once the police comes to know what's happening inside the plant, and once the officials come out and tell, or the office or the employees working in the company tell what's happening, what's the leak about, and how strong is the leak, and how effective is it to the people of surrounding areas and all. See, once we get to know, as soon as we got to know, we have intimated everybody. The NDRF people, ambulances have come around 5 o'clock. The police, the whole district administration has been attended at around 5 o'clock. See, yeah, tell me, please.
Okay, no, I know what you're saying, Mr. Amarnath, but there needs to be some accountability, right from the protocols that are in place with a city that has so many factories in and around that area. There has to be a proper reaction and protocol in place. Now, if NDRF is getting called 2 hours later and they're reaching the spot 1.5 hours after that, that's not okay. And if the factory is functioning in the middle of a city and people are living there, then they have to be extra careful, and we need to find out who wasn't. You have filed an FIR for culpable homicide not amounting to murder. You have filed an FIR for negligence in maintaining the equipment, and in that sense, there has to be an arrest. There has to be some questioning. Just because it's a multinational company, Mr. Amarnath, I hope you don't let them off the hook. Lives have been lost here. But I am completely out of time, so I'm going to thank you right now for joining us on the show.